ICA welcomes you to this event and thanks you for your participation. To improve the quality of the video conference, please take note of the following recommendations. Remember to unmute your microphone only when you are given the floor. Please keep your microphone muted when another person is speaking. We ask that you keep your camera on at all times so that the other participants can see you. If you need to step away for a moment, you can turn the camera off and turn it back on when you return. Please put your cell phone in silent mode to avoid any interruptions during the video conference. We recommend that you maintain proper posture and position yourself adequately in front of your computer. Simultaneous interpretation will be provided for this meeting via the Zoom platform. At the bottom of the Zoom screen, you will see a globe icon that says Interpretation. Click the icon and select the language you wish to listen to. It is very important that you select the language in which you will speak, as this will facilitate the interpretation. At the end of the video, please remain silent for 30 seconds. Afterwards, the moderator will begin the meeting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to this 2-hour webinar on a celebration of the Caribbean region on agritourism, on innovative approaches to agritourism. We're looking at issues of boosting production, trade, sustainability, and a whole slew of other themes. Delighted to have you. I'm the country representative for ICA, based here in Canada, and my team and I are delighted to welcome you to celebrate these themes today. And we are also the Secretariat for the Caribbean Agritourism Network and have a wonderful set of panelists and experts from across the region who will share some welcoming words with you. Especially, I'd like to thank IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development in Rome, for sponsoring the event. And we have a welcome video with the Associate Vice President for External Relations. And we'll start with that from Catherine Megan. Over to you.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Megan, and on behalf of IFAD's senior management team here in Rome, I'm delighted to deliver these opening remarks on innovative approaches to agrotourism in the Caribbean. First of all, a big thank you to ICA Canada and SICA for organizing this wonderful event, and to all of you for the excellent work you do each day on agrotourism. You know, reflecting on agrotourism, the focus is often from a tourist's own perspective, providing unique and memorable travel experiences. And that's important. But what's much more important from IFAD's perspective are the positive, sustainable opportunities and job creation for rural communities. Agrotourism is a triple win. Economically, it supports small-scale local production and rural job creation. Culturally, it benefits rural and indigenous communities broadly, including sustainable infrastructure and preserving indigenous food cultivation and meal preparation. And environmentally, it demonstrates and amplifies the need to preserve biodiversity in the environment. Agrotourism is a key innovation in rural development, generating real income for local populations, especially youth, so they can thrive in their home communities, boosting production and trade in a sustainable way. For example, Latin America is home to 40% of the world's biodiversity and 57% of the world's primary forests. Through agrotourism, there's scope to preserve and protect these resources against unsustainable development and adverse effects of climate change. IFAD's almost 50 years of work in the region is deeply rooted in financing and empowering local communities to shape their own paths. And I'd like to give you 2 examples. First, the ongoing Food Heritage for Youth Inclusive Agri-Food Project empowers rural youth in Bolivia, Colombia, Guatemala, and Honduras. It provides training and services to enhance employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for youth in agri-food systems, in gastronomy, and in cultural tourism. Second, in Mexico, the Rural Balsas Basin Project has supported an indigenous community to invest in things such as solar batteries, water systems, playgrounds, and road maintenance for their ecotourism center. These efforts demonstrate that by combining cultural preservation with sustainable economic growth, agrotourism can create resilient opportunities in agriculture and in tourism, ultimately contributing to more inclusive and sustainable food systems. Of course, we need to work together. We need strong partnerships to make this possible. And I'm really pleased that ICA and IFAD will be taking our partnership forward through our recently signed MOU. Ladies and gentlemen, agrotourism is a triple win: economically, culturally, environmentally. Thank you, and I wish you a fruitful webinar.
Sincere thanks, Katie. Wonderful to partner with IFAD once again, and delighted to strengthen that partnership we signed at the G20 in Brazil recently with your president. And now, and before we go into our three different sessions, we're going to have a regional perspective provided by the Caribbean Tourism Organization and Mr. Ramgoolam. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for that introduction and so on, and for that wonderful speaker that went before me. Let me go ahead now. I'll share my screen and we will begin. All right. So again, thank you so much to the ICA team for having the Caribbean Tourism Organization part of this this event on agrotourism. I'm going to share with you some regional perspectives relating to opportunities in agrotourism. I'm going to talk about it from a Caribbean point of view. Now, before I get into the presentation, I just wanted to set a little bit of context, on what is agritourism. So I went into the journals, Annals of Tourism Research, Tourism Management, Current Issues in Tourism, as well as I looked at our own internal sustainable tourism policy framework that was developed for the Caribbean region. And when I looked at the articles and so on within those, I use a funnel approach and thematic analysis, and I came out with what was the main thing, that was common with the definition of agritourism. And what came out at the core of that notion was that agritourism seeks to develop and strengthen the links between tourism and other economic sectors nationally and regionally to maximize the multiplier effect on the economy and reduce economic leakages, which is something the Caribbean is prone to, a lot of economic leakage, right? And of course, with something like agritourism, what it does is it marries those two sectors. And traditionally, the Caribbean, and when we're talking the Caribbean perspective, agriculture was the main cash crop at one point in time. It actually shaped the history of Caribbean people and so on, and brought us to the region. It was what brought us from other parts of the world to this particular region. So I looked at that, and that was a common theme that emerged throughout the definitions and so on in terms of putting it into context. I also looked at the ICA and the documentation, and they were spot on and bang on target as well. They also spoke about enhancing the linkages between tourism and agriculture. It helps to improve food security, reduce dependence on food imports, and create new income and livelihood opportunities for rural communities. So there was consistency again with all the definitions and so on with regard to agritourism. What I've come across as well is sometimes, when you're looking at agritourism and the literature in the region, and you're looking at the literature globally, you will also come across agrotourism. Both of these terms are used sometimes interchangeably in the tourism scientific journals. All right. Now, some benefits of agritourism to the region. And we heard the speaker before me, talk about the economic aspect of it, right? And it leads to economic diversification, something I think the region, we need to have more of. We need to have more diversification of our economy. And with a product like agritourism that marries two sectors, What this does is it opens up that door for farmers to get that additional income stream. It reduces dependency on traditional crop sales. And of course, it brings that added economic benefit. It also brings as well job creation. And when we're talking job creation, not just employment opportunities in the rural areas and so on, but of course in hospitality areas as well, right? And there are also indirect job creation avenues as well that is sometimes often not measured. But of course, with something like agritourism, it can create jobs in those other spillover areas as well. You also have as well local economic development. It stimulates local economies by attracting tourists, and these, bring benefits and stuff to especially small businesses within communities. And so it leads to cultural exchanges. So when persons visit those farms and those rural areas and so on, they get to understand the culture and so on of individuals who are living in those communities, and it leads to cross-cultural exchanges where you can also understand the cultures and so on of those persons coming in. Of course, there's a strong community engagement aspect of it, where it encourages local involvement in tourism. It promotes pride in culture and heritage, and you get that up and going. In fact, our last speaker, the last sentence she spoke, she said it leads to economic benefits, social benefits, and environmental benefits. And those are the three underlying pillars of sustainable practices, right? And therefore, it promotes environmentally friendly agricultural practices, which lead to better land management and conservation, from just getting into agritourism. As well as there's an additional benefit where it increases the understanding of local food production and the importance of supporting the local farmers, right? So these would be some of the benefits. Now, there are many others, but I just pulled out a few of those benefits that would, apply to the Caribbean context. Now, in terms of challenges as well, there are some challenges as we talk about the Caribbean and agrotourism in the region and so. And some of these challenges include infrastructure limitations, right? There's inadequate access and transport options. A lot of our islands are small, the road networks and stuff. As tourism continues to grow, it will place a challenge on how do we get to certain areas and so on within these destinations, as well as insufficient visitor amenities, restrooms, the accommodations, dining, etc. In terms of marketing and awareness, there's limited promotion of agri-tourism offerings, competition, and there's competition with established tourist attractions and so on. That's another challenge. In terms of capacity and management, farmers may lack training in hospitality and tourism management, right? And of course, there's also seasonality affecting income and employment. Those would be some additional challenges I came across. Some of the journals talked about economic viability, where you have high startup costs for infrastructure and marketing and so on, price sensitivity impacting discretionary spending. Those would be some other challenges. In terms of the environmental concerns, sometimes there could be that difficulty in striking that balance between tourism growth and environmental sustainability, right? There can also be some land use conflicts affecting agricultural production. In terms of regulatory and policy issues, there are some challenges when it comes to the limited or lack of supporting policies and incentives for agritourism, right? And of course, another challenge, climate change and natural disasters, vulnerability to hurricanes, droughts, climate-related events, and of course, there are challenges in adapting practices to these changing conditions that are happening. Now, having said that, it still allows a lot of opportunities to strengthen the linkages in the tourism value chain through local procurement, including from women-owned businesses and enterprises with owners from indigenous communities, right? It also allows for the promotion and it promotes the use of local products and materials into all aspects of skills development that are relevant to tourism. So, for example, trainee chefs should be trained in designing menus that incorporate local agricultural products and foodstuffs according to their seasonality, right? So that's something else that it allows for. Now, according to Forbes, and this was done 5 years ago, right? They had predicted that, with the global market size of agritourism, they had forecasted that it was expected to reach 10.16 billion by 2024, and with an estimated Caribbean market for agribusiness products of 4 billion per year. So this just shows you there is huge opportunity for the region to enhance its tourism product and improve food security, connecting visitors and locals to the people, places, and processes involved in the production side of food and drink, or what you would call gastronomy, in the tourism literature. Right? So, and this is one of the main opportunities and one of the main reasons why one should get into agritourism or foster climate or support agritourism, because there's a strong economic opportunity behind it. Right? Now, within the Caribbean region, there are many examples and so on. And I just pulled out a couple, because I do know within the agenda, we do have some wonderful speakers who are going to share what they are currently doing in their countries and so on. And one example that came to mind was the Belmont Estate in Grenada. And of course, at this estate, what stood out when I looked at the case studies and so on was how they linked cocoa to tourism. It was, they started from scratch. You could go and see the cocoa trees. You can actually go, and it was all about the storytelling and the process and how they went about crafting that tourism product by marrying agriculture, with the cocoa estate and so on to tourism, and getting individuals there. And of course, it wasn't just about marrying both of them, but there was also a value added at the end as well, because after doing the tour and visiting the cocoa estate and so on, you also had that opportunity to purchase, chocolates and products and so on to take away with you at the end of the day. So this was one example that stood out in the region. It's a current best practice and so on that one can draw from. So it's the Belmont Estate. Another one that stood out is the Cocoa Hill Forest in Barbados, right? And that's a 53-acre agro-tourism project featuring 3 kilometers of hiking trails overlooking the rugged east coast of Barbados and taking you through over 70 species of tropical fruit trees, herbs, and spices. And of course, when we look at the trends and so on and the data post-COVID, people are looking at wellness type products. They're looking at environmental products. They're looking at going back to nature. And of course, this product came to mind as well, which is something that we have happening in the island of Barbados. A third example that came to mind, in looking at the Caribbean and the topography and the soil structure and so on, in the area of the Virgin Islands. This is their Ridge to Reef farm, right? They have on St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and this is where you can experience, have an experience on the farm with their volunteer programs, farm stays, farm tours, and bush skills. It teaches you primitive skills, the basics, and so on, and it grounds you back to nature. So this was another product that existed within the region. Now, into the future, what I foresee based on the trends and based on the opportunities and based on the journals and the material and so on that are coming out, people are seeking out a lot more herb and spice stores. And of course, within the Caribbean region, within the Caribbean context, we do have a lot of gardens and so on. We do have a lot of spices. We do have a lot of herbs and so on. We do have a lot of what you would call bush medicine, which people tend to use, and they operate and they work better than the over-the-counter drugs and so on. Like your fever grass, your lemongrass teas and so on. So of course, in looking into the future, these are some areas which can provide opportunities for further development in the Caribbean region. So of course, yes, we have herb and the spice tours where you can have guided tours of plantations and so on, hands-on experiences, harvesting, grinding the spices, doing cooking demonstrations and so on. Farm to table culinary retreats, right? Those are coming, more and more popular. You have as well cultural exchange programs, aquaponics and hydroponics workshops. I've seen some of those in Trinidad and Tobago, especially where people are using the hydroponic systems to grow lettuce, and the way they build it out and so on, it actually utilizes less space than if you had to traditionally use fields and land itself, so they're using the hydroponics for that. And people are actually visiting for tours and so on as well. So we have that one. You also have as well artisan and craft fairs as well. There are green markets, lots of green markets and so on, emerging and mushrooming. Wildlife and agricultural safaris, where you have tours combining agricultural experiences with wildlife spotting and so on. Those can work in those areas like Guyana and Suriname and so on that have a lot of farmland, one, and two, they have the space as well as the wildlife and so on existing there. So for certain destinations, certain countries, number 6 would apply to them. They can actually look into that for the future. You have as well farm-based wellness retreats, in terms of yoga, meditation, healthy cooking classes. There's also a trend now where you have a lot more vegans and vegetarians post-COVID than you had prior to COVID. So that's a new trend that's emerging as well. And of course, people have started many destinations around the world. If we look at the Sri Lankan model and so on, they've started fashioning, farm trips and so on, and vegetarian cooking and so on to create certain types of products where they actually push a lot of agritourism to the front burner, with those types of destinations. You also have as well a lot of cocoa and chocolate tours. I have seen this in a number of countries in the Caribbean, especially with the cocoa and the chocolate tours, traditional crop workshops and so on. You also have as well farm to brew experiences where you can develop tours exploring the brewing or distilling process using local agricultural products in partnership with breweries or distilleries. And of course, something which very few of the destinations in the Caribbean have started doing, solar renewable energy tours. In fact, Curacao is one of those destinations in the Caribbean that has actually started showcasing their wind farms and so on, and their renewable energy sources with educational sessions, and pushing sustainability to the forefront. So these would be some opportunities that we can tap into, for the future. And of course, when we're talking about exploring the opportunities and what are some strategies that can help us get there and further develop our agro-tourism products in the region. One is to develop agri-tourism packages, right? Create comprehensive tours that include farm visits, workshops, local cuisine tastings, etc. Promote the local products, highlight local produce through farmers markets, food festivals, and culinary tours. Those are some strategies we need to engage in. Enhance accessibility, improve the transportation to the rural areas, provide better signage and information to tourists. Collaborate with local farmers, partner with the farmers for experiences like fruit picking and farm to table dinners. Implement training programs, offer training on hospitality and marketing for farmers and local communities. Create those agri-tourism trails. Establish theme trails connecting farms and agri-tourism attractions where you marry them together. Utilize digital marketing. Use the social media. If you're not online, you're not on sale, use social media and tourism websites to showcase the agri-tourism experiences and success stories. Emphasize sustainability. It's not just a buzzword, but it is, people are talking about it now to taking sustainability to another level. So you will hear a lot of talk about regenerative tourism, and moving that needle in that particular direction. Incorporate cultural elements, integrate local culture through cooking classes, storytelling, musical experiences, and of course, engage with educational institutions, partner with schools, universities for educational programs and research opportunities in agritourism. So we get to know what the best practices are and we can share it. All right. And that was the end of my presentation. I want to say again a thank you to the IICA, to the attendees, and of course to my tourism colleagues and so on who are logged in and they're representing various destinations. So thank you so much again, and I hand over to the team.
Excellent presentation, Mr. Ramgoolam. I enjoyed that. Good overview of the opportunities, challenges in the region. Excellent. I wish we had more time to chat. I'm hoping you can stay on. The format we're going to have over the next hour and a half, we have 3 sessions. Each session will be about a half hour. We have 2 presenters, then Q&A. So in the Q&A session, don't wait for your questions. Post them in the chat as we go along, and then we will be able to discuss them with the speakers online and here in the room here. We've got many experts. A bit of housekeeping too. I see there are about 25 people have joined since we started. If you speak Spanish, there's an interpretation button in Zoom, bottom right. You see a globe. If you don't see it, click on more, you'll find it there. And then you can pick Spanish. They're in the chat. Risha and others have been asking about the videos. We are recording both English and Spanish, the entire workshop, and you will find it on our YouTube channel, and usually in about 5 days a week after the event. So now we're going to move over to marketing. We're going to talk about marketing strategies, leveraging local products. We have 2 speakers. One is based in Barbados and one here in Ottawa. We'll start with Barbados with Miss Marsha Aileen. Over to you, Miss.
Thank you so very much, and a real pleasant good morning to all of you. If it's afternoon wherever you are, it's really and truly an honor to be here. I am the Chief Product Development Officer with the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., and I'm going to take a little, I think, divergent view from my colleague Narendra. It's actually really good to see you, and I'm going to be talking today about rum. And how many of you know that rum and tourism actually go hand in hand? And of course, it goes hand in hand as well with our agro-tourism sector. So Barbados, for some of you, and most of you may know that Barbados is really the birthplace of rum. Rum is the spirit that has been an integral part of the island's culture and history for over 300 years. And today it really gives me pleasure to talk about the rum route. And the rum route is one of 3 signature events taken from the Barbados Food and Rum Festival, which has been awarded the best food and rum festival in the Caribbean for 2 consecutive years. And time obviously not permitting, it would have been great for me to talk about the whole Food and Rum Festival and its role in agro-tourism. But I'm going to speak about the rum route specifically, which is a route that offers an immersed journey into the rich traditions of celebrating our craftsmanship, our stories, and experiences that have made Barbados rum well known throughout the globe. The rum route gives persons the opportunity to explore the very roots of rum, where the place where it was born, creating an unmatched experience for those who want to connect with the authentic Bajan culture, cuisine, and to taste and observe what happens in the process of making rum that has been passed on from generations to generations. And as we know, the overflow of molasses and sugar is actually rum. And of course, rum would have had its origins in sugarcane, which obviously is the link from an agro-tourism perspective. So the rum route was actually created to ensure people had a historical underpinning or understanding of what made rum so special and all of the elements that was associated with rum. I must tell you that the entire Food and Rum Festival attracted a really wonderful cross-section of both locals and visitors. There was a 60-40 split actually between those persons coming to Barbados to take part in the Food and Rum Festival and Barbadians being part of it as well. The Food and Rum Festival also provided a really good landscape for our farmers, our chefs, our mixologists, and redounding in obviously economic returns from an agritourism perspective and assisting the economy of Barbados in agritourism and full-on tourism as well. So going back to the rum route is a journey that provides a unique opportunity to visit historic distilleries such as the Mount Gay Rum Distillery, the Four Square Rum Distillery, and the St. Nicholas Abbey, all obviously well known in Barbados. And each location, even though they're all distilleries, actually offers something very, very unique, very, very different, from the aging process to how the different stills that the rum is actually created in. And of course, it's all set in a beautiful backdrop and different scenery as well. In terms of the target audience, as I said before, the Food and Rum Festival attracted a 60-40 split between locals and visitors. But in those that target audience, we also wanted to ensure that we found a space for rum enthusiasts, for the cultural travelers, persons who actually visit the island to immerse themselves in the local culture and the ways of Barbados and the experience of the locals, and also the gastronomy and spirit lovers. So there are foodies who travel across the globe looking for authentic cuisine, and I think the agritourism space actually provides a really good opportunity for those types of persons to be able to immerse themselves in a food and beverage culture, such as the food and rum experience. So the Food and Rum Festival and the rum route is important because it's more than a tourism attraction. It's a celebration of the Barbados history and the contribution to the global spirits industry. As the birthplace of rum, Barbados actually holds a special place in the hearts of the rum lovers worldwide. And the rum route ensures that this heritage is preserved, it's shared, and experienced in a very authentic and engaging way. And that's really important, that the authenticity of the rum making and its linkages between agriculture and tourism is actually preserved. The initiative also is significant, has significant economic and cultural benefits, promoting local businesses and supporting the tourism industry, and also providing opportunities for locals to share their stories and their craft with the world. The rum route actually underscores the importance of Barbados as a player in the world of rum. And of course, it draws global attention to this rich tradition and craftsmanship. I just wanted to make sure that my slides are actually going with what I'm saying. I don't want to be too fast, but I know that I do have a time limit. So when you actually go on the rum route, which is the next slide, here are some of the things that you can expect going on the rum route. Of course, you can witness firsthand the pride and passion that goes into each single bottle of Barbadian rum, making it not just a product, but a symbol of the island's resilience, creativity, and history. In fact, if you actually go on one of those rum distillery tours, you get to understand, the backbone of how we got to creating rum, who was involved in the historic making of rum, and be able to share with some of our rum sommeliers what the resilience and the creativity was all about in ensuring that you were able to get a product that is known universally, sorry. So this unique experience takes visitors on a rum shop hop. And if you have never visited Barbados, Barbados has what we call rum shops. And rum shops are a little like taverns, but a little more because they're more authentic in terms of, so in the history, the rum shop is where you went to get the news about what's happening on the island if you didn't have a newspaper or you didn't have a radio or you didn't have a television. And so Barbados boasts over 1,500 rum shops interspersed through all of the territories of the island. And so we take persons, not on all of them, but on some of the unique rum shops across the island so they get a chance to feel the authenticity of the Barbadian hospitality and to have a real insider's look in terms of what's the rum making process is all about. But they also get to sample some of the premium rums that we have across the distilleries and the rum shops with the distinctive flavors and je ne sais quoi, which makes the rum obviously so special and so different. So it's actually a moving celebration that's really designed for true rum enthusiasts. And so it's really more than just a tour of the island. It's more like an adventure because each participant is actually given what we call their own rum passport. And that rum passport is a keepsake. So each stop that they make, they get a chance to get a stamp, and they can go back, through that passport and reminisce over some of the memorable opportunities they had as part of the rum route. So when you sign up for the rum route, here's what you can expect. Whether you're a seasoned rum connoisseur or you're just simply looking for a deeper dive into the Barbados's history, heritage, and culture, it offers you, of course, a great education into the history and heritage of the island, and of course, the history and heritage of rum making itself. We will guarantee you that you will enjoy it and you'll have an opportunity to explore the richness of what it takes to make a good rum in Barbados. Lots of opportunities to taste, to see, to learn, to engage, and to also converse with other rum enthusiasts so that you can not just have a great experience, but to create memories for persons who, like yourself, would be interested in learning more about the culture and history of rum in Barbados. So in conclusion, the rum route, as I said before, is not just a tour. It's a journey into the hearts of the Barbadian people, the Barbadian culture, the Barbadian way, and the Barbadian ethos. It's an opportunity to toast to the island of its enduring history, its culture, its heritage, and of course, the legacy of the birthplace of rum. And as I conclude, I'm extending the invitation to all of you to join us for the 2025 Food and Rum Experience to celebrate this heritage, this history, this agro-tourism product, which makes Barbados unique and different and special. And this is why we remain the culinary capital of the Caribbean. Thank you so much. Food and Rum Experience.
Well, you're making me want to go, Martha.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'll sign you up right now.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely tell our team in Barbados to participate, Roxanne Wade in particular. And we've been enjoying this conversation. Your passion and enthusiasm for your product and your country comes through very quick, directly. It's been an enjoyable session. Thanks for your time. I know you have to go. Sorry you can't stay for the Q&A, but that was lots of fun. Thanks so much.
You're more than what you can do is if there are Q&As that I can certainly you can take a note of them, and I'd be happy to share, a brief note on our recommendations, explanations on any of the items that I would have shared this morning.
Fantastic. Take good care. Safe travels. And just for those in the online, I see there are lots of new people. A bit of housekeeping. We don't tend to present any of the speakers. All the bios are available in the chat because we want to focus more on the presentations, on exchanges, conversation. And so I'd like to shift over to Canada now and invite a colleague of ours, a friend of ICA here in the room, Trevor Benson. He's a managing partner of Mannequin and will speak to value co-creation.
Thank you, Jean-Charles. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today in person and joining you online. And thank you to ICA for the invitation. I can certainly vouch for everything that Miss Aline has shared by way of Barbados being the culinary capital of the Caribbean. I have a particular bias to cause trouble in the room here. And I've certainly enjoyed many rum routes, not the official rum route, but had my experiences. And today I'm going to share really just a general comment on value co-creation within the context of agritourism. For those of you online, I see you, Yvonne, and some others who I had the pleasure of being with in Grenada earlier this year. You may have some echoes from that presentation, specifically around flourishing in tourism, which I presented later in the year at the Agritourism World Congress in Northern Italy on flourishing in agritourism. And I'm using that language specifically because I think what we're doing in the earlier presentations today and what was just shared is we're pointing to not only the realities of, but the need to pressure test business models within the context of tourism, and agritourism being a specific example of that, where we are asking ourselves the question of how do we share our foodways and the wonderful foodways across the region with visitors to our places, to our destinations. And when I use the language of foodways, I'm talking about the who, what, where, when, why, and how food is grown, produced, prepared, and experienced or enjoyed by locals and visitors alike. And agritourism provides us with that opportunity. And it does so by situating enterprise, by situating business within the context of not only the economy, but recognizing that the economy is nested in with a society which has culture, and most importantly, that has the environment. So in doing so, this allows us to situate from a marketing standpoint and a strategy standpoint, our value propositions using the language of value co-creation. So agritourism necessarily asks us questions about our enterprise, such as who is involved in it, who are our co-creators, and what it's doing in terms of pushing kind of that question is it's looking to not only the visitor as a co-creator, but most importantly to the agricultural community. So we're seeing cross-sectoral, multi-industry collaboration when we're exploring agritourism within the Caribbean environments. And that is something that's so beautiful because there's tremendous value co-creative opportunities that can be tapped into. Miss Aline shared one example, really kind of exploring the history and heritage of rum culture. We're seeing different forms of that in Barbados as well, with Hayman's Market being a recent example. I got to go to the opening of Hayman's Market, which is located in St. Peter, which is an old sugar factory and plantation, and it's tying in not only that history and heritage into the visitor experience, but importantly, it's co-creating new value through events such as weddings and other forms of activation during different times of year, but also by working with local producers, vendors, and artisans to leverage the infrastructure of that sugar factory to showcase their local product, their local wear, which is quite special. I saw earlier this morning Cocoa Force, which is actually just down the road from where I used to live in Barbados and still visit frequently, where you're seeing more of a natural, organic celebration of all the fauna and flora that a visitor can connect with. And I think really there's now opportunities to start layering on that, not only within Barbados, but within all the different types of examples within the Caribbean, where we look at activating those spaces. Just as of this week, I was very thrilled to see a place where I used to call home, used to live, being Hunt's Gardens, is now in partnership with Chuck Adventures out of Jamaica, which is really exciting because they're looking at bringing a new form of agriculture to the visitor experience, and that's through a celebration of the flowers and the beauty of Barbados, in this case, in St. Joseph. So what I'm most interested in and where we work within the context of agritourism is around the business modeling and the looking at the enterprise from these perspectives, asking ourselves, how does the agritourism experience meet the needs of the visitor? And we're finding increasingly with the trends and comments that were made in the first presentation around the region, that what the visitor is demanding is more of a multi-sensory, multi-dimensional connection with the place that they're visiting, beyond the sun, the beaches, etc., getting more into the foodways and experiencing what it is that locals are involved with on a daily basis. And I think we can count that as a foundation of all the Caribbean being agriculture. And that's what really we're looking at in terms of celebrating new and potential experiences. And this all leads to the marketing of these experiences, and then most importantly, the storytelling, the wraparound of these experiences. Rum is not just rum. Rum is a phenomenal drink, but what makes it taste better is that joie de vivre, is that je ne sais quoi, I think Miss Aline had suggested, and that is the story. That is when you taste it, you're understanding and appreciating what it is that you're connecting with from a place standpoint. And when you start to think about pressure testing traditional business models, which are hyper focused on the economy, if you look at more flourishing business models and considering not only society, but the environment in these, which you can do very accurately with agritourism, then you can start to look at some of the outcomes and benefits we associated with agritourism as more intrinsic parts of the agritouristic business model. And that's where you can start to share stories. You can start to pick out various elements of the business model when it comes to narrating and sharing that connection with place, with visitors. And that's where we really see agritourism be a medium of exchange, a conduit for the visitor to really meaningful experiences of place. Happy to take any questions, happy to talk more about this. There's some important kind of visualizations and tools that we use. If you're at the CTO Sustainable Tourism Development Conference, you would have seen some of what I shared by way of the canvas, but it's a little heavy, I think, to get into today, and would be more than happy to share with Ika to send to you all.
So there's a business case to make it more experiential, because the product is fantastic, but alone, not enough. You have to tie it to local community, and more experiential, the better.
Absolutely. I think the business case is looking at pushing the agricultural business and accepting that agriculture in its own, whether or not we're talking in Canada or talking in the regions more specifically, is not necessarily a sustainable activity. By layering in the touristic activity, you can build a more resilient and a more flourishing business model, and one that brings together stakeholders across various industry, public, private, and the not-for-profit sectors. And together you can co-create increased value for not only the visitor, but the various stakeholders or co-creators in the business, which is so important when we're thinking about bridging generational gaps, connecting the youth and women and others to not only the production side of agricultural business, but the forward-facing side, the stories behind the people behind the agricultural business. So it's really pushing the agricultural business into a new space and accepting that this space often requires the experience, expertise, and resources of others, because you're challenging a traditionally agricultural business or inviting that business to become part of another sector of industries.
And the shift towards moving away from livelihood to an agribusiness is challenging. They don't often have sufficient skills or investments to do that.
It's very challenging, but it also in business modeling or designing business models that are looking at that diversified use of the operation and the lands related to that operation. Oftentimes agriculture should and can be attached specifically to where production is taking place. You can start to assess what resources, what supports, what capacity you need, and then work towards that. So in our process, and what we like to do is envision agritourism business models in far futures and work backwards from those, or backcast from those, because oftentimes the starting place for agritourism is not a bespoke or customized agritourism business. It is, rightly so, an agricultural business that is looking to diversify its use of lands and resources and to become more sustainable and ultimately to flourish in the future. So by envisioning more resilient, more sustainable, more flourishing business models and backcasting from those, you can ask yourself what steps or what changes and innovations are needed along the journey to bring these inspiring visions to fruition.
Commissioner from Jamaica, any immediate reactions, comments?
No, the presentations have been good, and you're down pat on what is there. Jamaica has been doing it, and you know our Minister of Tourism. This is a passion for him, and we have seen the win-wins. Allowing the tourists who have moved beyond just sun, sea, and sand and beaches, who want to see what it is that your countries really have to offer, to taste the natural, and it helps to strengthen awareness. It also brings a more natural feel. It's not just going through a sterile taste. So in Jamaica, for one, that we were sharing earlier, where you now have where tourists can go into the community and you can go out fishing and you come back and you prepare, you will taste the fruits. You can go and pick the crops. We also have a rum tour. Where you go and you start from the beginning, you hear the history, and as you said, once you hear the history and you're able to experience, it's a total difference in taste. So for me, drinking my own Appleton, no, it's a total different feel. But it's something that more and more persons, especially when they go out, it's not just for beach. They want to truly experience everything and get a better appreciation. And so there is a win-win from this.
And I think importantly, I know we were speaking this morning about whether or not something is called agritourism or the language of agritourism is used is not necessarily the important thing here, because I think universally we can accept there is no universal definition. I sit on the Global Agritourism Network Standard and Definitions Committee, and it's been a year and a half of exploring that in conversation, and I don't think that conversation is going to end. What is important, when I was in Grenada, I did one of the technical visits, is I went on what was being marketed and positioned as a waterfall hike, and it was with a gentleman, Ros Genji, who was the most amazing storyteller, and I could easily have positioned that whole experience as an agritourism experience, because what he was doing was connecting us to the lands that he was producing wonderful organic product on. We were able to taste that product. We were to hear how he was, really involved with that from a livelihood standpoint, but from a shepherding or a stewardship standpoint as well. And it didn't matter whether or not it was positioned as a waterfall hike or an agritouristic or a foodways experience. The important point is that we were left with an experience because of the integration of agriculture and food into not only the narrative, but the immersive, the hands-on experience. So the more times we can layer that in, whether or not it's specifically through something like a rum route, which is very easy to connect to production and to a foodstuff or a product in rum, is if we can layer on in any and all experiences that agriculture and food-based experience, we're only going to be enriching the visitors' satisfaction.
Colleagues?
No, I like the concept, particularly the idea of developing business models, because it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to map it out in terms of how it can work from a financial standpoint.
Absolutely. And we're talking about necessarily questioning existing business models. We are talking about agricultural business models, which are typically inputs, production, outputs, and so attached to the revenue side, to the economy side, and challenging those. So it's really an invitation to think beyond and within the context of that were noted earlier today, within the context of society and the environment.
Fantastic. Thanks. We're out of time for this session. My thanks to Trevor. Excellent discussions and dialogue. I haven't seen any additional questions in the chat, so we can move on to our next session. And we've been alluding to this in terms of culture. That's the theme. So we'll be doing culture and sustainability and agritourism in this next session with views from Belize and Grenada. And we'll start with Belize with Mr. Waluko Mahia, the General Manager at the Copper Tree Lodge. Over to you, sir.
Yes, man. Top of the morning, everybody. Coming to you live from the heart of the rainforest here in southern Belize. Yes, hello. So I'll go ahead and share my presentation there, and we'll get started. Top of the morning or blessed day. All right, so Copal Tree Lodge, an eco destination. All right, if you see the picture to the right, that showcases a few different aspects of our property. So on site, we have Copal Tree Lodge, which hosts the hospitality side of our business. We also have our organic farms, including our small organic garden, but also larger scale agriculture for our sugarcane production and cacao, chocolate production. Sugarcane produces our Copale rum, and the cacao produces chocolate and provides cocoa nibs for the flavoring of one of our product lines. And then we also have, of course, Copal Tree Distillery on site. So in my presentation, we will be discussing a little bit on the history and background of Copal Tree Lodge and where we came from to where we are today, sustainable practices, and the challenges and successes of operating an eco resort. I also want to say thank you for the opportunity for having me, and thank you, Ika, for hosting. All right. So the history of Copal Tree Lodge. The groundbreaking or discovery of the lodge began in roughly 1999 to around 2000, and it was originally discovered as a fly fishing lodge. All right, and fly fishing still accounts for about 20% of our business today, and it is a huge industry here in Belize. Around 2004 is when our current owners acquired the property and it became Machaca Hill Lodge. Our owners founded the lodge through fly fishing as well and continued the fly fishing industry with the lodge for a few years. And it was until around roughly 2008 where we introduced sustainable farming and the farm to table package we now offer today. That was by introducing an organic garden on site and planting more fruit trees on the property, therefore using the produce up at the kitchen and the restaurant. In 2016, it was the birth of Copal Tree Distillery and Copale Rum. Here we have a bottle of our Copale Rum, Copale Cacao. Hello? Still hearing me clearly? Okay, yeah. So yes, in 2016 was the birth of Copal Tree Distillery and Copale Rum. And that's when we started or changed the name from Machaca Hill to Copal Tree Lodge. Same owners from 2004 to today. But we wanted to coincide the three different entities on site, like I mentioned before, Copal Tree Farms, Copal Tree Distillery, and Copal Tree Lodge. And today, we now have an eco destination that offers agritourism and hospitality, the farm to table package, sustainable farming, and a bunch of agritourism tours. Of course, with a distillery and a farm on site, we're doing everything from coffee cupping, bean to bar, chocolate making classes, farm tours, distillery tours, mixology, learn to make the cocktails with farm fresh produce, and the list goes on. Here's a photo of a guide and an angler fly fishing. Like I said, it is a huge industry here in Belize, and fly fishing still accounts for roughly 15 to 20% of our business today at the lodge. All right. Fly fishing is huge because it provides economic opportunity for local guides, but it also has a positive impact on marine biodiversity as well, as it is sport fishing, catch and release. So there's a lot of awareness that is driven behind fly fishing as well. Here's a photo of our organic garden where we grow everything from mint for your farm fresh mojitos. We have yucca, cassava, cabbage, and the list goes on, coconut, and a lot of these things are therefore collected and then served through the kitchen and the restaurant. We do produce roughly about 50 to 60% of the produce used in the kitchen and the restaurant, and we purchase the remaining crops and produce from local farmers. And this photo is a portion of our property, which displays off to the left our main lodge, which hosts our lobby and our restaurant. And just below the pool there is one of our jungle suites, right? But I like this photo because it really captures what Copal Tree Lodge, the hospitality side of the business, is all about, where it is a minimalistic approach to building. As you can see, just from this photo, you could tell already that staying at our lodge, you get you're encompassed by nature. You're built. The structures are built right within the canopy, and actually we chose a minimalistic approach when constructing our structures, so that we're not taking down rainforest to build. The same aspect applies to our farms. Growing agricultural sugarcane for rum production, we did not cut down any rainforest to grow our sugarcane. All right, the areas where we have our sugarcane plantation and cacao plantation were actually repurposed citrus orchards that were there from roughly the 1980s, 1990s. All right. So some of the sustainable practices we have on site: chemical-free agriculture, starting from our small organic garden that produces crops for our kitchen and restaurant, and it extends out to our larger agricultural aspects for the sugarcane plantations and the cacao, meaning that we're not using any harmful chemicals in the growing and maintenance process of our crops. We also practice recycling waste, whether it be our small compost operation that we take waste from the kitchen and the restaurant to compost to provide organic fertilizer for our garden. But also things like we have livestock on site, chickens and sheep. We rear which produce raw materials for the kitchen and the restaurant. But chickens and sheep produce manure, and manure is organic rich fertilizer. So the manure is used back in the garden. We also use chicken manure for our sugarcane plantation. And also one thing that I do want to mention, because there's a whole lot of stuff we do, is the use of waste sugarcane fibers. So after we press our sugarcane for the juice that produces the rum, that dehydrated cane fibers would normally be waste. It now becomes bagasse, and that bagasse is what we actually turn into a biofuel. That dehydrated cane fibers, which I'll show you in a little bit down the road in the presentation, we take the bagasse and it goes into a boiler, which then generates steam energy for the heating of hot water for sanitation, temperature regulation for the fermentation tanks, and the heating of stills for distillation. So the use of waste management is a big part of sustainable practices that we have here. Building in harmony with nature, I just touched on that just a little bit ago, but it's balancing building and construction with nature, having a minimalistic impact on the environment. And that in a bit we will touch on. That comes with some challenges, but it is something we accept to have the balance of nature and tourism. And then building community. If for me, being a local right here, I grew up only about 10 minutes away from Copal Tree Lodge and Copal Tree Farms and Distillery. It is giving back to the community. As we believe, one of the ethos for our company is that the only way to achieve true sustainability is through economic opportunity. It's one thing for us to come and say, do not overfish the rivers, do not overlog the rainforest. You have to do these sustainable practices. But for a lot of people that practice that may take the route of unsustainable practices, a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, it's for them to put food on the table. So really, to achieve sustainability, first we create awareness, but we need to find economic alternatives to achieve sustainability. All right. And one of the things that we're proud to say is that Copal Tree Lodge and Farms and Distillery, we are the largest private employer of Southern Belize, employing about 170 local employees year-round. And that is excluding in the production season of our rum with temporary workers. There's our guy Desmond on the left doing his rum distillery tour. All right. Fresh heirloom sugarcane in the heart of the sugarcane plantation there. And the photo off to the right is showing some guys harvesting sugarcane in the production season. Desmond was also tour guide of the year in 2015. This is the bagasse I'm talking about. So these are the dehydrated cane fibers that come out post juicing. And that cane fibers, which would normally be considered waste, now becomes a biofuel that powers about 60% of our distillery, all the heating operations. So far, so good. All right. After the left is our iconic photo of our canopy suites, our signature canopy suites, and our infinity pool. But this picture is amazing because it just shows you our small little lounge immersed within pristine, untouched rainforest. And we actually sit on 16,000 acres, which 98% of which is protected. And we work hands in hands with local NGOs to protect the area and the watershed that flows below the Rio Grande River. All right. Then after the right is a younger photo of me. But it is part of our philanthropy program. So aside from being a large employer of Southern Belize, or the largest employer of Southern Belize, one of the big community initiatives we do is community give back, the philanthropic initiatives. This one, for example, is a pack for purpose, where we encourage our guests visiting the lodge to pack items that can be given back to the community, specifically clinics that could be used for infants and toddlers. And this one here is the Big Falls Community Clinic. We also do another initiative where we make donations to community initiatives such as primary schools for renovations to classrooms and so forth. And it's where we donate $5 per guest night. And every month we are giving back to the different schools or local or grassroots organizations within the community. And that is very important for the awareness and, like I say, creating the economic opportunity within the communities. All right. So some of the challenges, as you could imagine, we have structural and mechanical maintenance. The minimalistic approach is great because we are maintaining or keeping the rainforest intact, but it does lead to a faster deterioration rate of our structures such as roofing, gutters, and wooden structures. These things deteriorate a lot faster, so it requires constant maintenance throughout the season. And then we also have the challenge of balancing nature and comfort, all right, providing a luxury experience to our guests while also maintaining the natural aspect of the rainforest. Some of the challenges that come with this is that you have guests visit the lodge and enjoy the comfort, but in the rainy season, like right now, we might have a lot of mosquitoes out, and this, in sense, it's like it's kind of challenging to balance that comfort and the nature, all right. And then mosquitoes is just an example, but we also have scorpions, etc., the insects, right? And then let's talk a little bit about maintaining a sustainable garden. So, all right, yeah, that's better. Okay, so let's talk about some of the challenges in maintaining a sustainable garden, but this also extends out to our agricultural fields for sugarcane and cacao. Well, of course, there are economic challenges. It is a lot more economic to take the traditional route or using chemical-based fertilizers or going to the store, getting your pesticides or herbicides. So it is more economically efficient to take the unsustainable route a lot of times. But you have to want to achieve sustainability, and it's just something that comes with maintaining a sustainable business. So there are economic challenges. We know that once you get a product that is green or natural or organic, you're paying the top dollar for it. So these are some of the economic challenges with maintaining a sustainable or an agrotourism business. And of sourcing appropriate raw materials. We use organic seeds for our garden, things like lettuce and bok choy, cabbage, etc. So these are not always readily available at your nearest farmer store or livestock store. So sourcing this can be a challenge sometimes. Sometimes we need to import these seeds, which come with a lot of importation tax and a lot of legislation with importing these things. So there are challenges to going that route as well. And then, of course, maintaining crop health and production in a sustainable manner. I like to think of ourselves and everybody doing the sustainable route or organic farming as pioneers in this realm. A lot of times we are basically figuring out season by season what works better. There's not a whole lot of information out there on how to properly, what do you do when you have insects attacking your plants, and when you have pests in the garden, pests in the fields. We can't just go to the store and get your nearest chemical and spray the fields. All right. So a lot of this is, independent research, going on Google, what works, what's a natural insecticide for armyworms, for example, eating up our pak choy or cabbage. So I like to say that is one of the challenges, and we are kind of the organic pioneers when it comes to sustainable farming. And we are finding out this information year by year. All right. This is the inside of our canopy suite. So balancing that luxury with nature, as you could see outside, it's thick rainforest. On the left is our funicular or tram that takes you down from the lodge down to our river deck. But as you could imagine, it's surrounded by nature, surrounded by trees. So one of the challenges sometimes, because we don't want to clear down an amount of trees that is habitat for a lot of biodiversity, we always have to be maintaining these structures. For example, if a storm passes through, well, as you could imagine, trees would fall on the tram, causing structural damage. So like I said, the deterioration rate is a lot faster. We have gutters filled with debris, so it requires more constant cleaning and maintenance. All right. And these pictures here show the armyworms or the caterpillars attacking our pak choy. And I'm telling you, these insects are very resistant to a lot of stuff. So it takes a lot of research and trial to see what works. Recently, we found that the neem oil, a neem oil mixture, helps a lot with this. All right, but these are some of the challenges we face on a daily basis. And of course, if you are attacked by a lot of pests in your garden, especially if they get them from a seedling or the germination stage, that is a lot of it could be a big economic loss for the business. And let's talk about some of the successes of operating Eco Lodge, right? So of course, and I heard this in several of the presentations, but of course, economic opportunity, supporting the local community and the local economy. And like I mentioned before, achieving sustainability, we believe, can only be achieved through providing alternative economic opportunity or income. And of course, another success is supporting healthy biodiversity and ecology, maintaining and keeping rainforests intact, and also protecting the watershed and marine biodiversity. Like I mentioned, the Rio Grande River, which is the largest watershed of southern Belize, passes right alongside our property. So it is important that we maintain the watershed health, and doing so by practicing organic and sustainable farming. All right. This has a direct impact on marine biodiversity in the Caribbean Sea, just 9 miles upstream. Downstream, I meant to say. All right, and these are just some photos. This is our bean to bar class. We have Dustin on the left doing the tour with some guests, showing them from cacao pod really, to the bar, the chocolate bar. We have our chocolatier Maynard making some nice dark chocolate there. We have Elan. He is clipping some organic cacao there, and we have our cacao nursery. So a big part of it is local employment and providing economic opportunity to the local community. All right, and of course, biodiversity. These are keel-billed toucans. This is our national bird. These can be seen on site every day. Our property is also a hotspot along the migration path for birds, so we also often attract a lot of birders. And you could see upwards of 60 to 70 different species of birds a day. The little fellow on the left is an agouti, or what we call a wild rabbit. These can be seen every morning and evening at the lodge. And of course, our howler monkeys, right? All these wildlife that I'm showing you can be seen at the lodge. Birds and the agouti every day, the howler monkeys every other day. And this photo is, is just showing that you could successfully achieve economic opportunity, agrotourism, ecotourism, while maintaining nature. There's a lot of travelers today that want to travel consciously. They want to visit places that they know are contributing to nature. They want to visit places that are rich in nature. It will be a shift from the normal living room for a lot of these homes. So they do want to indulge in places that have nature all around them. And then what's next? I think I'm a little over time here. But what's next is continue to contribute to Belize's local economy, maintaining healthy ecosystems, and contributing to lowered global carbon emissions, right? So that is all achieved through maintaining the natural ecosystems of Belize. All right, I think we're going to do question and answers after this, you said?
Fantastic. Well, look, excellent conversations. You're getting positive responses in the chat. You got hands up. People in the room, you made them laugh a few times. So
all right, good,
really
good.
Well done. Inspiring model for the rest of the Caribbean region, not only in Belize.
Definitely.
Please stay on.
That's only a little snippet,
session. Really. Sorry, Waluko, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and that's only a little snippet. The most I could fit in 10 minutes. All right. So, we have a list of over 25 tours, and a lot of them could be conducted right here on site.
Excellent. I'm going to suggest you answer the questions in the chat while we move to Grenada and to our next presenter, and Miss Alicia Serrao. She's part of the Belmont Estate, and we'll speak to organic farming, artisanal dairy, craft chocolate, local cuisine, and then we'll go to a session on Q&A. And keep your hands up. I see them. We won't get to them until the Q&A. Over to you, Alicia.
Hi, good afternoon, and I am coming straight from Grenada, the spice of the Caribbean. I hope everyone is doing well. I want to thank Ika for giving us the opportunity to discuss our story, and a pleasure to meet all the panelists, those who have gone already and those before. I want to thank Mr. Ram Ghulam for giving us high praise in his presentation earlier. And throughout all the presentations, everyone has been quite motivating, and we could relate to what they are talking about with agritourism and our vision for the future. I would just want to take a quick, just to identify what we have on the front presentation slide. It is a collage of what we offer, melting the cultural aspects of our cocoa, which is our primary product, along with our nutmeg, and what we finally produce, such as our chocolate, our bonbons. And in order to do that, we must connect with our farm, our farmers. And so this is a little bit of our story. Note well, in the middle of the slide, you're going to see something like 80 years strong, Belmont Estate, a living legacy. And as we go along, I'm going to touch base on that again so you could connect, so then you can see the link between our cultural heritage and our sustainability in agritourism. You can go on to the next slide, please. A little snippet, if you realize my accent is not totally Grenadian. I'm an import, basically. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. However, I managed to move to Grenada for the last 10 years, and I could actually officially say that I'm a spicy girl, not as in the pepper context, but a true spice between bay leaf, cinnamon, nutmeg in particular, which is now one of my favorites. All right. And I want to elaborate a little bit on that, because living in Grenada, you actually begin to live and experience and to be able to breathe and to touch what we offer. You can read it in a book, but if you come to and you see what we do, you would not be sorry. Now, if you go to the next slide, I want to tell you a little bit about our history. What about Belmont Estate? Now, one of the first things you have to understand, Belmont Estate has existed in Grenada for over 300 years. So just imagine that sort of history from back then until now. Now, it's currently owned by our Grenadian family called the Nyack family. They took it over in 1944. Now, you have to understand the importance of local business ownership within the rural area, which we are located in the north part of Grenada. All right? Just imagine that for the last 80 years, getting back to the beginning of the slide, that it is a local family that's now in charge of bringing and sustaining the local economy within the community. All right? Also, I would like to take this opportunity as well to say that unfortunately, Shadell Nair Compton, the managing director and the brainchild behind the diversification of Belmont Estate, could not be here today, hence the reason why I'm here. However, I did include her, which is that beautiful smile out there with the cocoa. And right below are the true owners at the beginning in 1944, her grandparents. Now she's a lawyer, she's a farmer, she's a legacy bearer, she's a mother, she's a daughter, she's everything. She is what represents the true epitome of what Belmont Estate is all about. And it is through her guidance when she returned to Grenada that she diversified from just farm, taking the cocoa and the nutmeg and bringing it to agritourism and product manufacturing. All right. And please, we have to note as well that our cocoa is recognized as one of the 50 best samples in the world by the Cocoa of Excellence. You can go to the next slide, please. All right. So here are some of our experiences. Now, we have to look at our cocoa and our nutmeg. And from that, it was a springboard into what we can offer from farm to the factory chocolate experience. So here, our guests are able to go into the farmland, communicate one-on-one with our farmers as well as with our tour guides, experience the traditional way of cutting and bringing and actually tasting the fruit of the cocoa. I hope that you're beginning. Are you tasting the cocoa right now? Because I am beginning to taste it. I mean, come on. And then they come back on site and we walk them through the fermentation process. We allow them to put their feet into our cocoa beans. And listen to me, it's just like doing grape mashing, etc. It's an experience because it is something that has been done for hundreds of years. Also, we have our Creole restaurant. Here, we use our local crops that we grow on our organic farm. Now, just imagine it's relatively a 360 restaurant. You can have your choice of, if you want to look at the gardens, you can look to your left. You want to look to the ocean, you look straight ahead. You want to get the river experience, which I'm telling you at the moment is pretty high, to your right. And if you look across, you get to see and feel and breathe in the fresh air from the forest and the mountains. We also have other interactive tours, and we recently had introduced some new workshops, again, giving guests the hands-on experience from the goat dairy tours and workshop, the chocolate workshop. We also have educational activities, not only for the adults, but also for the kids, because we have to remember, as legacy bearers, we have to look at succession. We have to look to make sure that the community and our guests are trained and educated in what we're doing so that they could continue when we're gone. We have our animals, our goat farm and dairy, which again, our cheese is one of the best on the island. And I'm thinking, can you all just come down? I mean, I wish I could bring it to you, but I think you should come down to us and our plant nursery. Okay, and if you look at the pictures there, you can actually see at the bottom where guests have the opportunity. That's a copper where we actually used to shine, and well, it's more for decorative purposes now, but they actually refill it and the guests have the opportunity to move and dance along with drums to get the experience of what it was like many years ago. You can go on to the next slide, please. All right, here is just a little snapshot of our cocoa products and some of our other products that we provide on site, all which come from our land. Now, just remember that before we had our chocolate factory and even the chocolate movement, before all of this many years ago, Grenada was really recognized just for their cocoa balls and their cocoa tea. But since then, and with the introduction of our chocolate factory, which we began in 2017, we wanted to take what we were making on our farm and produce it into various products, such as the cocoa powders, cocoa butter. We have a line of over 13 different flavors of chocolate bars, a new line of cocoa balls, all you have flavored and natural. And then other products such as jackfruit pickle. You have golden apple cuchilla, spices. And as I mentioned before, our goat dairy. Again, all of these are made right here on our estate. Next slide, please. Okay, I just want to give you a little inkling of our sustainable practices. We are organic. We became organic in the year 2003. Shadell actually worked with one of the pioneers of the local organic movement, Mott Green. I'm not too familiar, sure that you're familiar with his name. And she worked with him and they were able to get organic certification in 2003. And then Shadell, bit by bit, was able to certify our various fields in an attempt to ensure that what we produce is understood and throughout the entire value chain. So therefore, no sort of fertilizers and whatever inputs that we try to put into our field, it is in accordance with our organic certification. And please note, we became kosher certified in the year, maybe 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. We also look at the way we try to practice our traditional techniques, especially in our application of intercropping. So we actually use not just only banana, but we also use our pigeon peas and the Lucina trees to intercrop along with the cocoa. Now, this is also very much traditional along with our pruning. You know, we try to avoid using saws and other apparatus that could damage our trees. And it's more of a manual intensive application. However, it is one of the ways that we could sustain ourselves as an organic farm. Then we also look at our waste management. We have several different departments, our restaurant, for example, and our chocolate factory. They churn out waste every day. And here we are able to take that waste and put it back to use to make something else. So for instance, the restaurant, whatever that we generate, whether it's the waste, it goes to some animals and then others, we take it and put it back into our biodigester, which fuels energy for us to continue to make our value-added products, such as the cuchillas and pepper sauces that I showed you before. We also look at our zero waste initiative, where we try to take our plastic bottles, we collaborate with our local water supply here so that we return it, and then also we use the bottles now in our nurseries to germinate new plants so that we could replant. Next slide, please. Here you can just see the little snippets of, that's Calvin there in the field smiling as usual, Shawnee with his lettuce, and Miss Margot. She is the epitome of cocoa. I just want to just show you that they again are part of our team, which comprises roughly about 100 persons. So in the North, we are one of the major employers. And just imagine that each family consists approximately about 2. So therefore, we're up to about 3. Then you're looking at about 300 persons within the local community that we are able to touch successfully, giving them a form of employment, a form of education, and something for them to feel better about themselves. Next slide, please. All right. Now, we're going to take our sustainable practices and twin the cultural experiences for our visitors. So we invite persons from the community as well as our staff, because we want to encourage entrepreneurship, to use the cocoa husks to make earrings, to paint, to do artwork. Then also we twin the drumming, which is, listen to me, it is one of the most motivating experiences. Every time I hear the drum, I want to go and turn some cocoa myself, I just want to dive into the experience. As well as at the restaurant, we continue to showcase our food on traditional coal pots, what our mothers, our parents, etc., cooked food on. And it is such a moment when guests see that and they say, wow, how can we be part of that? Because, many of them have never seen a coal pot before. But also, looking at that picture down there below, there was a session with our chefs. We actually try to use the fruit and the other spoils of our farm, and we try to put it, not really spoiled, but if you get what I'm saying, into our chocolate to make unique chocolate bars. For instance, we have something called the oil down chocolate. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Is the traditional dish of Grenada, which comprises of ginger and turmeric, etc., but minus the meat, and we put it back into flavor that chocolate, and it's one of the most favorite. Yes, we have people, I see you laughing, I see some people say, y'all have chicken or fish in the chocolate. No, it's not that. It's just that we use the basic ingredients to form new flavored chocolates, just for the cultural and connection experience. You could go to the next slide, please. Here we are, I'm just showcasing some of the experiences that persons have had. And these are true, those are visitors that came, and also that's Edlin, one of the chefs at our restaurant. And we try, just as someone had mentioned before in their presentation, we try to use whatever products that we make on the estate and put it back into the creation of healthy meals, because we also want to try to encourage all the staff as well as our guests of a healthy lifestyle. Can go to the next slide, please. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the economic impact and community involvement. We 100% support our local artisans. We also collaborate with our local farmers and fishermen. We also try to communicate and educate them on becoming organic, similar to ourselves. And we meet with them, we try to encourage them. We also have job creation in agritourism. And this is where we have our Belmont Foundation, which is another arm of Belmont Estate, where they actually touch the community. It actually came as a result of the destruction of Hurricane Ivan and Emily back in 2003, 2004, respectively. And it emerged slowly as taking care of the elderly. And then now that we have expanded more educational programs, a young farmer, etiquette classes, you name it, that's what we do. And we even support education. We actually select certain students who excel in school and guide them throughout their high school years and even into their college years. All right. And we look at our commitment for economic stability. You could do the next slide, please. All right, this is some of the examples of us visiting the elderly. Traditionally, it comes around Christmas time, but we have moved and ramped up our contributions to the economy, to the local community even more. We also provide local veterinarian services for persons where you could bring your goat, your donkey at certain times, and we collaborate with the SGU so that they could manage and ensure that their livestock are also they are also able to produce things for themselves. We also have on-the-job training programs. So we have collaborations with our local community colleges, etc. They send their students to us. We train them so that, who knows, those trainees come back as future managers, future supervisors in our dining room. We want to ensure that our community is all-rounded and developed. Next slide, please. All right, and some of our eco-friendly facilities, and also we tell persons, the visitors, about our site. So for instance, our chocolate factory is run by our solar panels. This helps us in reducing our huge electricity bill. We actually installed it, made and completed the installation 1 week before COVID shut down. So just imagine, we were so disappointed. We actually had to wait at least 2 years to get it fully up and running again. All right. Also, our cocoa house, which is more of a solar convection. It's very unique. It was also created in connection with Mott Green, and the drying house and the drawers at the bottom. The drying house and the drawers at the bottom, I wish I had a picture of it that you can see. It rolls out. And then we actually sun dry the beans. It takes roughly 3 to 6 days, depending on the weather and the intensity of the sun. That's a traditional way. But, you know, because of climate change, where we can't really tell when there's going to be too much sun or too much rain, the solar convection house is then able to give us that extra support. Unfortunately, we had some damage recently with Hurricane Beryl, but we are currently working on doing the repairs for that. And then also, we had a student from Earth University, which we do have another collaboration with, which is falling under our early education support. Here, he was given the task of trying to create housing using local material, which you can see he used bamboo in order to protect our biodigester from the elements. And he did quite a good job. So congratulations, Cornell. That was pretty good. He's from Tanzania. Could you give me a next slide, please? All right. So we are committed to renewable energy. We are committed to water conservation and harvesting. We also have adopted a tree program, which is now part of our regenerative project since the Hurricane Beryl, which we did have roughly 60% of our cocoa fields were damaged, roughly about 40% of our nutmegs were damaged. And we are still recovering from Hurricane Ivan, particularly when it comes to our nutmeg. We are not at our production levels that we were pre-Hurricane Ivan, and Hurricane Beryl just came and did a little bit of damage again. So once again, we now have to become a little bit more invested in creating other products, because unfortunately, not to go too much off track, Hurricane Beryl has also affected our cocoa production significantly. And as a result, Shadell sat down and again, she ran through and worked with our team to come up with other alternatives for products. So again, Hurricane Beryl, as all natural disasters, are negative, but we are drawing the positives from it in order to ensure that our business model continues. Can you have the next slide, please? And here we go with our future goals for sustainability. We are looking at expanding some of our sustainable tourism, creative educational experiences, fostering conservation partnerships with MOUs. We do have MOUs with the University of Manitoba, which is all about birds and managing our ecosystem. And every time they visit us, they say, wow, at least you have 70 species, which we did not even know that we had on our estate. We also have a connection with the University of Edinburgh. And this is a relatively new MOU because we are looking at the creation of a knowledge bank for oral history, again, connecting back to our legacy and our heritage. And also promoting environmental stewardship, eco-lodging. And I think I may have to speak to Waluko. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Maybe I need to come to Belize to check you out. We can exchange some ideas. And can I have your the last slide, please? That's the end of my presentation, but there's something significant with this picture at the back. That tree that's hoisting the bell. Unfortunately, that was part of our tourism routes. That tree was unfortunately cut down as a result of Hurricane Beryl. It was over 300 years old as far as we know, and it did not survive after Hurricane Beryl. But we are working with the University of Edinburgh to find out more about the history of the bell, and we are also looking at replanting the tamarind tree to replace what we have lost. And thank you very much.
Thank you. On the contrary, people here online and in the room are applauding. They're all sad for the tree, and people online feel like a breath of fresh air. I think that Ranita's right. Actually, I'm going to ask my colleagues, Paulina, can you pin Alicia and Waluko so we can see both speakers at the same time? And then we have Q&A. I know my colleague here in the room, Trevor, he has to go shortly, so he wanted to start off with the first question.
Thank you, Charles. I just wanted to, more of a comment, I guess, Ms. Alicia and Mr. Waluko, is just, I think for me, what you've demonstrated is, what I was touching on is highly sustainable, flourishing businesses, which I took away are, fully integrated, closed loop systems that obviously tremendous time, energy, and effort has been put in, and creativity. And I really appreciated, the resiliency that you demonstrated in what it is that you showcase, knowing that it is obviously iterative, developmental, and you've covered many years, but I mean, the foundations that you've set are setting you up for just more success in the years to come, which I think you've really shed light on for your businesses. I mean, not only from a business standpoint, the economy of it, but success being, the people that you've showed so many wonderful pictures of with their smiles and the environments that you're stewarding. So yeah, man, like what a pleasure to listen to your presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And Alicia, you're always welcome to Belize. So we got to connect.
Of course, I'm going to book my tickets.
Yes. And vice versa.
Yes, please come to Grenada. Please come to Grenada and see what we do. We're very proud persons. And once you come, your family. So come on down.
All right. Thank you.
We have additional colleagues from the Caribbean here, from Jamaica and Guyana. Maybe we'd like to react quickly.
Yes. Caribbean Connect. This is the Caribbean Connect.
Yes, I mean, it's an honor, to be honest, to hear the both of you present. You were recommended, a former colleague of mine, Miss Ina Harvey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She was our former agritourism specialist for ECO, and she has spoken highly about the two entities. And I've done further research, and that's one of the reasons why the both of you are here presenting today, because I really do believe that you present a model that is it is really an amazing model that we all would like to achieve. Yes.
Yes, thank you again. I am listening to the presentation, and as you'll hear in a few minutes, Guyana is going to be embarking on agritourism development in a substantial way for the next few years. But I think what you've accomplished is indeed quite a good model, a model that we can adopt, replicate elements of, and learn from. And I'm eager to have sidebar conversations with you to learn a little bit more, and maybe even visit to see some of these products. I've definitely not experienced the one in Belize. I've had some experience with the one in Grenada, and I see you've done a lot more over the past few years, and for which congratulations. It's quite a bit of movement and growth, but you did a phenomenal job. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right, we do. Yes, we have 3 people online. I'm going to ask my colleague Paulina to invite them one by one to participate in the conversation. Short answers, short questions, please.
Hi, good day.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah, I want to say that I am so impressed with my colleagues from, well, I'm calling them colleagues because we all in this agro-processing field and agricultural field from Grenada and Belize. Now, the only thing now is to find money to come to both of those places. Because I have to drag my family with me, right?
Yes,
Or could I just leave in the dead of the night and just send a postcard. But no, all jokes aside, this is serious stuff you guys doing. I am so impressed. And I really enjoyed the presentation, the passion with which you all talk about what you all are doing. I am, and the journey was important. Talking about, well, you know what I want to talk about? Where you say that, okay, it's all nice to talk about sustainability and don't cut down the tree and don't do that. But what about these people who depend upon that, depending upon feeding their families? And I've always made
Exactly.
you have to find a way to balance that, desire for climate change, the desire to have sustainable development with people actual bread and butter issues when they reach. And if you could reach them there the way you have been able to, I think it's a model that could really be shared around the region. So thank you all, both of you all, for your presentation. And I see Miss Kuchela. I know you were from Trinidad the minute I heard that accent.
Yes.
So nice meeting you all.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Ms. Tyson. Appreciate the commentary. I'm going to move on to the second hand up, please. Raimundo. Over to you, Raimundo. Can you hear us? Your mic is closed. Well, in the meantime, Waluko and Alicia, there's a question in the chat asking if you are profitable or as a business.
Yeah, I could go ahead and start with that. Just to address the first question in regards to providing economic opportunity as an alternative for unsustainable practices. I just want to mention we won't be able to employ everyone, but what we've seen and what I've seen, because I grew up in this community, is maybe a grandfather or uncle is illegally logging or illegally fishing, but if somebody from that immediate family is employed, they then take that awareness home, and there's a sense of pride in sharing the knowledge about sustainability, and that's how we slowly achieve the sustainability. So even if you're not able to employ everyone from the community, if we are targeting the different families or somebody from each family, that is one way of achieving it. In terms of profitability, we've been very fortunate in recent years, and the only thing I could attest to that is increased marketing and investing in marketing. We've been around from 1999. Thankfully, our owners could have sustained the years, but our occupancy levels didn't start to increase until around 2017, 2018. And it's only until recent years that we are seeing the fruits of the labor. In terms of the actual initiatives that we have on site, whether it be the distillery, the chocolate production, a lot of these tours and activities that we offer, we are now selling a lot more of it. We are what we call in hospitality, heads in beds through the marketing. We have people staying at the lodge, and if you have people staying at the lodge, then we are in turn selling the tours. So we had to be resilient for quite a number of years, but it wasn't until recent years, I would say about 2016, 2017, that we took the leap and invested a little bit more in our marketing. We've always been a unique little property. The people that do visit say that this is a wonderful place and all of that. But until you could hit the masses, then we start to get more people coming in. So I'd say no, yes, we are profitable. No, but it took a lot of years and resilience.
Let's see. We have been set back by at least 3 hurricanes over the last 10 to 15 years, including this year. I can say yes, profitable. However, that we could still expect and do a lot more. We could be in a better position than where we are now. We are faced with challenges, and I think everyone is aware. One of the key things motivating persons to get back into farming, an aging population. We are seeing more and more of our farmers aging, and we're not seeing persons that are really motivated to come back in. And hence the reason why we are trying to churn out more educational programs and training to invite them, to encourage them, particularly women. we have our competitors because before we were just one of the primary estates and chocolate, we were the second chocolate factory on the island. Now we have more competitors. We have at least 6. Well, not exclusive of us. Let's say we have about 5 more chocolate factories on the island. So we have to be constantly looking at reinventing ourselves, looking at what's the next best thing, looking at what our target market is, and then get into the target market. We have embarked recently looking at our figures who actually visits the estate because we need the new figures post-COVID because we have seen certain changes. People, as someone mentioned before, are looking at more into health and wellness, looking at the value chain, looking at things where they're coming in. So we want to tap into that, and we have started to measure persons within the last few quarters of the year. So hopefully we would be able to say what's our growth rate. Maybe by next year, we could ascertain, has it increased, has it decreased, or are we at the same level where we were pre-COVID?
Excellent discussions and dialogue. I've been enjoying this. I'm going to take one last question from a colleague who's retired now from Barbados. And just to say, cheese on bread, Dina. And where Eugene, like you, delighted to have you today. And I'd like to invite you to ask your question so we can move along. We only have about 15 minutes left.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Hail out to my former ICA colleagues, still working in agritourism as far as Saudi Arabia and still throughout the Caribbean. My question is, are all of the documents and manuals and initiatives that ICA Caribbean has been involved in for the last 20 years in agritourism been documented? I'm happy to see that there's a webinar sharing experiences, and we've documented so much more information. What has happened to the Chefs for Development website? We've documented models and we've deconstructed those models to what are the critical success areas and so on. Hail out to Shadell and the team at Belmont and to Joanne and Sean and everybody. Let us please share all that rich information that has been developed at ICA, primarily through ICA Barbados office for the last 20 years. Thank you.
On contrary, thanks, Ina. We have a new website, agritourism.ica.int. We'll post the link in the chat. It's a combination of all the richness of the work that you've been doing over the last 2 decades. Shauna also wanted to react.
Yes, well, I was actually going to say the same thing, that through the website that Dr. Leverly just mentioned, we are trying to collate some of that documentation that you referred to. So if you go on that website, you will actually see some of that documentation on the site. And we are actively trying to collate information from the different countries so we can have that database of information that you are referring to this survey.
Yes, and so there's a map with the entire region, and you can click on the countries and look up some data and the resources, opportunities. And we want to build on that and feed and grow the website. So if any of you would like to participate, please submit use the form on the website to submit your content for review by the developers. And I wanted to thank, we can move on to the next session, Shauna?
Yes,
Yeah?
and just quickly, we have been in communication with the ICA Barbados office regarding the Chefs for Development
yes.
initiative. And so we know that that is still something that is on the agenda for ICA. It has not been forgotten. And we are in dialogue with the ICA Barbados office on that initiative.
Happy to hear.
Excellent, Ina. Good to see you again. And my thanks to Waluka and Alicia. Excellent presentations. Very enjoyable, inspired a lot of people, I think. And we look forward to working with you and growing out tourism in your countries. And we will have a last session, which will only last an entire 11 minutes. And so we're going to shift back to Canada here. And the 2 speakers we have are from Jamaica, from Guyana. They're colleagues of ours. And I'm going to pin our room so that we can see here. And so over to you. Let's start with Jamaica first.
No, I think she is first.
Oh, yes, Guyana?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Over to you.
Okay. Good Morning, it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. We can play the first slide. We're going to move pretty quickly. Guyana is developing an agritourism policy and roadmap. We are the first, I believe, in the region to have this particular undertaking. The reason being that we understand that for the development of agritourism, in fact, for the development of anything at all, there must be a plan. And in order for it to be sustainable, invested in, the government believes that both the private sector and the government must have a very clear understanding of what this type of initiative requires. So ICA was asked to take on this challenge to develop this policy and roadmap. It's intended to be a 10-year strategy. And that's where we are today. But I'm going to play a quick 1-minute video so as to familiarize persons in the audience about Guyana and what we're about. So I'll have that video play very quickly. I think you have to put on the sound in the corner. Below. I think you pretty much have a picture. Excellent. I think we have the general idea. Guyana is the fastest growing country currently in the world. We have not only natural resources in terms of oil and gas, we have forests, untouched forests, rainforests, waterways. We have been involved in ecotourism for a number of years, but agritourism is quite new to us in some senses, at least in the context of how we're discussing it today. We do have tenants of a number of agritourism type products across the country. One of the things we should note is that we have 6 races, so we're quite diverse in terms of culture. We have a well-embedded indigenous culture, which speaks really to what it is that we have to offer this discussion. So moving forward, in terms of the slide, next slide, moving forward, next slide. Next slide. We're going to take a quick look at our country profile. One of the things I wanted us to know too is that our GDP has increased exponentially over the years, and we have a very high visitor arrival, of course, due to oil production and what that brings to the economy. Key facts as well. Next slide. One of the ICA in drafting this policy, and I'm going to speak a great deal towards the development of this agritourism policy and what it means to Guyana in terms of economic growth and development. We recognize that agriculture and tourism poses many opportunities. We have agriculture employs 17% of the population. Tourism is the fourth largest export earner in the country. We've earned approximately 64 billion based on the average expenditure per visitor per year. Guyana's visitor arrival has moved exponentially over the years, 288,000 in 2022, which is 82.1% over what we had in 2021. So it gives you a pretty good idea as to the trajectory of the country and why it is necessary to look at how we can capture all of the opportunities. The next slide. The objectives of the agritourism policy and roadmap are listed on the slide. What we wanted to do is, one, we understand that data is necessary. We wanted to map the relevant studies, engage with our stakeholders to ensure we have a very clear understanding of the needs and the capacity constraints. We wanted to identify products and experiences. We want to make sure we propose timelines to develop these products and experiences. We want to make sure we are able to recommend sources of finance. It's not only about just writing a document and putting it on the table, but it's also identifying those short, medium, and long-term initiatives that are necessary or that we can develop over the next 10 years. And then, of course, making sure that they are bankable and finding resources to move them forward. So we're also interested or intending to pursue the institutional arrangements that are needed to oversee the development of agritourism in Guyana. And of course, identify the barriers and challenges to doing, to ensuring that this is a success. Next slide. Of course, many of the other speakers have spoken to the concept that there are tangible benefits in terms of food security and how agritourism can address some of these challenges: food availability, food access, food utilization. And we're very cognizant of these opportunities and hence embedding many of these concepts into the policy. Next slide. I spoke a little earlier about where we are as a country. 70% of Guyana's residents live in the coastal region. We have access via affordable trails, air, river, and transport to many other parts of the country, but we do have challenges: extreme droughts, record high floods. Climate change is a big issue for us, and we are, of course, looking towards innovative ways of tackling these issues. Next slide. This slide really just goes back to that climate change issue, but we are very, very sensitive of the health risks, the exposures, and the vulnerabilities. Next slide. What have we done so far in terms of the development of this policy? We've done the literature review, we've done the design, the pre-test, we've had targeted interviews with the ministries, many of our stakeholders. One of the key things that we did do is that we developed a focus group that in a technical working group that comprised not only the Ministry of Agriculture, but the Ministry of the Tourism, Industrial Commerce, as well as the private sector. So we're all around the table, and even some of their agencies that have a vested part to play in this particular initiative, and they are guiding and providing feedback as we move forward. ECA was very, very instrumental, of course, in ensuring that both ministries sign a memorandum of understanding that would help to shape how they work together to ensure that this initiative is a success. We've initiated a situational analysis. We've taken a look at the tourism sector in its entirety, what they have been able to achieve in the past, and what we believe is their potential in the future, as well as the agriculture sector and how they can fit into this discussion or the opportunities that lie therein. We've done the data analysis. And we are currently at the stage of presenting our findings and recommendations. Next week, Friday, the team here in this room, and ICA Canada office has been instrumental in supporting and guiding, as well as the ICA Jamaica office, working closely with us as we produce this document. We are going to be meeting with stakeholders to present to them that draft agritourism policy and roadmap. And of course, it's an opportunity for them to provide us feedback, give us guidance, show us maybe where we've missed, how we can do better, how we can better the document before we proceed with finalization. Our goal is to complete this document at the end of this November and present it to the ministries individually for their review. Next slide. Of course, I just have in this particular picture, we have what our focus group consultation looked like. We went to every region. One of the things that we heard actually when we began this exercise is that, you know, some areas are so difficult to reach. And that is true, but we believe that for a national document, nobody should be left behind. We should speak to everyone. And for the past year, that's exactly what we did. We went as far and wide, all communities, regardless of cost and limitations. And the next slide speaks to some of the limitations. The picture on your, I believe your right, shows me crossing a river that was dry when I initially made the first trek, and coming back across, it was flooded. The reason the guide is holding my hand is not because I am drunk, but rather because the waters were quite treacherous and moving pretty quickly. But that's just because that just speaks to some of the challenges that we have because of our landscape. Of course, Guyana isn't flat only, we have mountainous regions, but all of it is quite beautiful. The picture on the other side of the screen, it's, I don't know if you recognize Shauna quite in the back there, but what we're visiting is the Temple of Palms. In this space, one of our agri-processors, it's called, one of our agritourism products actually, Adele's, they normally serve breakfast under the Temple of Palms, and it is a beautiful experience. Next slide. There are many things that we need to consider, many areas the roadmap must consider, key policy areas, infrastructure development, market access and trade facilitation, skills and capacity building, data collection, sustainable practices, community engagement, market and promotion. And we have taken each of these into consideration as we've developed this document. Next slide. Of course, there's this policy isn't being developed in isolation. We do have at the national level a food and nutrition security policy. We have a low carbon development strategy. We have a green economy vision, all of which have been taken into consideration as strategic contributions to the development of the policy. Next slide. Of course, we understand that there are a number of areas. It's not only the farm tours, it's the culinary experiences, it's the agro-processing. How do we link our agro-processors with the tourism industry? These are aspects that we must consider. We recognize the challenges, the development of packaging and labeling, reaching the standards that are necessary. Again, all areas that we are currently considering in the drafting, and of course, providing recommendations to move that forward. Next slide. As I noted earlier, there are a number of agritourism type products locally. We may not have labeled them as such. Sings Farm is a great example. Here you go, you visit the farm and you're able to, what in Guyanese term is called bush cooking on the farm. You pick your vegetables, they set it up for you, and they have a very, very rustic setup, but people are very interested in just sitting in the middle of a farm and picking their coconuts and, you know, going through that process of connecting with nature. And Sings Farm Agritourism destination offers that experience. The indigenous community is also very vested in showing what the opportunities we have. In one of the villages, they do a cassava making experience, cassava bread making experience, where you go, you pick your cassava, and they go through all of the processes with you, and you're able to experience what their traditional way of life and their traditional food. Next slide. Irokrama also very vested in this particular initiative. This is in the Rupununi Region 9. You visit these spaces, very beautiful spaces, very well thought out. Yes, there are challenges, but we recognize there are many opportunities, and there are many people who have already begun. So some of these spaces form part of what we consider our short-term initiatives, requiring only a few bits of capacity building and support in order to get them to where we believe they should be. Next slide. In conclusion, we recognize that this is an integrated approach. Enhanced climate, there are many aspects that need to be considered. We have worked with all our ministries. It's not only, we recognize that it's not only agriculture and tourism, even though those are the two ministries that we speak about. It's also Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, local government. Each of us play a role in this wheel, in this cog to develop this particular document and to move the sector forward. And that is exactly how we're approaching this initiative. Next slide. In conclusion, some of the recommendations that we absolutely are putting on the table, along with many, many others, is of course the introduction of climate smart agri-technology. Eco-lodges utilizing process and packaging techniques must have increased food access. Increased tourist arrival, we recognize, will create a market for fresh and processed products. Agritourism, we recognize, can create increased economic empowerment. We have noted, because of our experiences, that our regulatory agencies need to improve coordination, and also synergy with donors is absolutely important. There is a need for increased training and skill development for women and teenagers, particularly because they are the greatest, they have the opportunity to benefit quite greatly from this particular sector, and that, of course, the roadmap will require constant monitoring and evaluation to ensure alignment. Next slide. Thank you so much. Agritourism, as you are well aware, has the potential to provide increased income and to promote food security. And it is for this reason that we are investing in the development of this policy. And we believe that for Guyana, it is definitely going to be an opportunity for them to map out a very clear and sustainable path to ensuring success. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll quickly move over to Jamaica. And I'm going to suggest, just so for the interpretation, they are aware that we will extend the workshop for another 7 minutes, and we'll probably close around 12:15. Shana, over to you.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the participants who have stayed with us. Next slide, please. So we'll be discussing opportunities to increase production, trade, and livelihoods through agritourism linkages. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the things that I think we need to see agritourism is as a method for value addition for the farming sector. The further you can take your product from the farm, the more you can add value. And conversely, for the tourism sector, the closer that tourism gets to the rural community, the more it adds value to the local economy. And therefore, we need to find ways to create pathways to intensify linkages between the two sectors, which can result in significant spin-offs via greater farm output, new market channels, and more employment. And I'm going to give an example of a particular, next slide, please, food product that was pushed by the tourism sector in Jamaica. And so this is a story of Jamaican jerk when a food product has gone viral, right? And it is a great example of what is possible when we have a linkage between our tourism sector and our food sector. There's a quote here that I found. Next slide, please, from the Smithsonian Magazine from December 2020. Someone speaking about one of our larger manufacturers, Grace Foods, and that they sell close to 3 million jars of jerk seasoning globally every year. Next slide, please. Now, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so jerk has come a very long way in Jamaica. In my lifetime, I have seen jerk move from being just available in one small seaside lane in the country to now near global recognition, right? For that to have occurred, there are a few things that have propelled that transition. The tourism sector played a major role in the drive of the popularity of jerk. I remember once speaking to someone in the tourism sector asking, why jerk? Why was that the product from Jamaica that blew up? Quite honestly, jerk is not necessarily the most dear of food products to Jamaican people. But what she said was that the tourism sector realized that tourists, particularly from the main tourist market in the USA, saw jerk as being somewhat similar to barbecue, which was very popular in the United States, and they ran with it. In fact, if you visit Jamaica's North Coast, where the majority of tourism enterprises are, that is where you see the majority of jerk restaurants, jerk huts, jerk establishments. So the tourism sector has really helped to push the popularity of jerk far beyond what would have been possible from just the Jamaican diaspora. It has been mainstream through the visitors, the tourism market, people who have come to Jamaica and sampled jerk. Now in Jamaica, there are many hotels that resident on the hotel, inside the hotel, they have a special jerk hut on the beach where that's all they will serve, right? So, that is a good link, a good example of when the tourism sector embraces local food products. In addition to that, there has been a significant level of product development. Again, when I was a child, there was nothing called a jerk sauce or a jerk seasoning. That is something that has evolved. And so that is how the ability to make jerk anywhere in the world is possible, because the jerk seasoning or the jerk sauce is now packaged and can be made available wherever you are in the world. There has also been a level of modification of the product to be able to be palatable to a wider range of audiences. Jerk has become a bit milder. There have been innovations such as jerk chicken, when as a child that did not exist either, because chicken is a more universal product. So many things along the way have resulted in jerk becoming such a widespread known product across the world. Next slide, please. One of the most important things that makes jerk so important to Jamaica, next slide, please, is that the main ingredients in jerk are largely grown locally. For example, such products like scallion, pepper, pimento, cane sugar. The picture, for example, shows a scallion farm. So as a result, hundreds of local farmers grow the ingredients that go into jerk. So there is a direct linkage that benefits Jamaican farmers from the rise of jerk, right? They're one of the main beneficiaries as a result of the rise of jerk. When the previous slide speaks about Grace Kennedy and the number of jerk sauces that they sell, and they are just one of many local brands on the market. Next slide, please. Then what also happens is that now there is a jerk ecosystem, right? Because of the popularity of jerk, you have increased farmer output, you have a plethora of jerk restaurants, you have complementary food pairings. So jerk is going to go alongside roast sweet potato, roast yam, etc. So you also have opportunities for those products. As a result of the popularity of jerk, presents greater interest or opportunity for greater interest in other foods. So you'll have foodie tours. Then, of course, you speak about the jerk sauces, the jerk rubs, seasoning, you name it, right? You know, there's a myriad of jerk products now that are on the market. There's the export revenue from the sale of these products. And then last but not least, there are the jerk festivals. When I Googled jerk festivals, because of my location, the first one that came up was the Toronto Jerk Festival. And then I scrolled down and then it was the Florida Jerk Festival. And then I had to, you know, refresh my search and say, okay, jerk festivals in Jamaica. And in recent years, they have been around 5 or 6 in different parts of the country on an annual basis. So and a jerk festival has significant local earnings in the community in terms of the wide range of people that benefit from these festivals. So just to say that just one product has an ecosystem of potential pathways for economic and social benefit and tied in with the tourism sector. I just want to also add, moving on to the next slide, one of the things that we need to look at is how can other Caribbean products have that, you know, that similar sort of preeminence. How can we promote these products, particularly in collaboration with the tourism sectors within the Caribbean, so that, you know, we can generate that type of interest? Some people say hype, right? I mean, rum and chocolate are at the top of my list, but there are some others that maybe may not readily come to mind. Curry, for example, I don't hear a lot of people talk about curry, but there are few things more Caribbean than curry, right? I have a new boss. He's, you know, new to Jamaica, and he says he either eats curry or jerk. Those are the two things, you know. There's coffee, spice. It was mentioned by our Miss Sarah from Belmont Estate, you know, spice in Grenada and so forth. And there are several spices across the Caribbean. Coconut is a big thing. Coconut is a very tropical, a very Caribbean thing. Mango and banana. You know, these are products that are, you know, they're almost synonymous with the Caribbean. And so we have to look at the value chains for these products and looking at the forward and backward linkages and how can tourism help to propel these products. These are just some pictures. Next slide, please. How we can leverage local products, create stories around our food, shape the cuisine from local cuisine. One of the things that really impressed me in Ghana was their plantain fries. I have not seen this anywhere else. Everywhere else has fries from Irish potato. They choose something else that they grow, right? How do we craft gourmet products, and how do we connect our food to attractions? Next slide. Because when tourism embraces local food, you have several opportunities for improved livelihoods. The farmer will grow more. There will be earnings in the community. There will be greater attractions and events in the local community. There are new trade and marketing opportunities, and you create memorable food experiences in the tourism sector. Next slide, please. We also need to take note of the opportunities that come from the growth in tourism. Now, we have done tourism demand studies in Jamaica, which showed a doubling of the value of agricultural products purchased by the hotel sector over a 4-year period, a doubling, right? In this 4-year period, we'd have seen the growth of 32 new hotels opening. That is pre-COVID. Now, I have seen figures from the Caribbean Tourism Organization, which shows that the Caribbean is reporting strong recovery for 2023 last year, as some countries are surpassing pre-COVID levels in terms of tourist arrivals. What that translates to in terms of the value of agricultural produce or agricultural products that is demanded by the hotel sector is significant. And as such, the region's agricultural sector needs to move quickly to ensure that it is ready to supply some of what is demanded when your tourism sector grows, because that increase in produce or commodities is exponential that is demanded, right? We know some of the gaps in terms of meeting this demand. There are issues about inconsistent supply, limited information on products and services, inadequate supplies. And that is some of the information that actually was picked up by the studies in Jamaica. Notably, however, high prices was not among the main points. It was one of the points, but ranked fairly low down. So I think a lot of the other issues we can address. Next slide. So the support that is needed, there's need for continuous engagement, such as the webinar that we are having now that ICA is hosted, to be able to nurture linkages between the two sectors. We need to upgrade and adapt product offerings to make them more attractive to the tourist markets. We need to work backwards to meet the output, quality, and consistency requirements. Packaging. What your product looks like, how your experience is presented, makes a huge difference in how you're able to market what you want to sell. And then finally, creating that enabling environment, as my prior speaker and colleague from Ghana would have mentioned, in terms of policy development. All of these things go hand in hand. ICA has a track record of collaborating with various players along this agritourism value chain to increase awareness, foster these linkages, build the capacities to enhance supply and agricultural supply, and develop rural tourism activities. And so we will continue to connect the dots along the value chain. We thank you for your ongoing interest in this topic.
Thank you. On the contrary, very good end to speak on next steps in the sport. And we're looking forward to working with you, all of you. Thanks to the audience for staying on an extra 20 minutes. If you do work in this space, reach out to ICA. If you have ideas for collaboration, happy to explore those with you. And wanted to thank also the interpreters in Costa Rica. Thanks to our sponsor, IFAD in Rome, for their support for this event today. My thanks for my logistics team here in Canada for organizing the workshop. Any final remarks? I won't take any questions because we're over time, but feel free to add a few thank yous in the chat if you wish. And overall, it's been an exciting workshop. I've learned a lot, very engaging, very inspiring. And let's say about 5 to 6, 7 days after today, we will be posting live the YouTube channel. It's been posted in the chat. So just look up our YouTube channel and you'll be able to follow the workshop and promote it across the entire community in English and in Spanish. And we look forward to promoting this theme in the region. In Guyana, we'll be working next week there and advancing the roadmap and the policy. But as a whole, we wish your business as much success, and it's been a joy having you. Take good care. Safe travels, everyone. Bye-bye now.